Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us on a blessed Easter weekend. So glad to have you along with us. Boy, we had a couple of cold days last week, and we're recording midweek, but as I'm looking at the forecast, it should be a beautiful, beautiful Easter weekend. That's what I was going to check on, making myself a note here right now. I have a Facebook Live going right now, as I always do in the studio, so I need to remember which it is I'm working on. And right now, of course, it is the Outdoor Magazine Radio Show. Happy Easter weekend to you. I appreciate you being along with us. Boy, you can really feel springtime in the air now, can't you? I heard my first spring peepers the other day. That, another sure sign of spring. Of course, behind the skunks and the red-winged blackbirds and the sandhills and all that. But I love hearing that sound. Also, I'm seeing some reports of morel mushrooms popping up in the southern part of the state. A little bit early this year, it seems, right? Of course, springtime was a little bit ahead of schedule this year. Turkeys are gobbling. They have my attention. Turkeys, gobblers, longbeards, you have my attention. And you will have my attention now for the next several weeks. I'll be out there with my recurve, sitting in one of those primal see-through blinds. I love to hunt that way. I'm not a run-and-gun guy. I have nothing against it. It's just not the way I choose to hunt. But that's one of the great things about turkey hunting is you can hunt them like however you want to hunt them. You can hunt them with a shotgun, you can chase them down, or you can do like I do. You can set up with a bow, in my case a recurve, in a blind, over a decoy, near a roosting area or near a feeding area, and then call them in. Wait for them to cooperate or not. Depends on the day, doesn't it? If you have not tried turkey hunting and you're looking for something more to do in the springtime in Michigan, I strongly encourage you to give it a try. There are leftover licenses. Go to the DNR website, michigan.gov/DNR. You can get season 234, which is the month of May, which I affectionately call the mosquito season. But some of the best hunting of the year is during the month of May. Speaking of licenses, it is time here to get your new hunting and fishing licenses. I do it online. I just find it so much easier. Michigan.gov/DNR, or you can stop by any license agent. I do find, unfortunately, if you go to the wrong place, the agents might not know. If they don't handle a lot of licenses, they might not be as proficient and efficient doing it as some other places. If you go to a big store, of course, like a Jay's or someplace that moves a lot of licenses, you can get through with no problem. But I think that our Michigan hunting and fishing licenses are the best deal out there. I hear people complain about the cost of our hunting and fishing licenses, and I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be an elitist here or a guy who has more money than he knows what to do with, because I don't. But I think money spent on hunting and fishing licenses is money well spent. And I think it's a tremendous value. If I remember right, and I haven't bought my licenses for this year yet, I think it was $76, got me my base license, my all-species fishing license, and my combo deer tags. Now, it didn't include pure Michigan hunt. It didn't include any bear tags. It didn't include turkey tags, but those are minor. $76. Back when we had movie theaters we could go to, I would spend more than $76 taking my grandkids to a movie for 2 hours of entertainment. So for $76, I can hunt and fish year-round here in Michigan for the entire year. How can you complain about that cost? I can't. I really can't. I think it is absolutely a tremendous, tremendous value. Hey, I have to congratulate Martin Schindel. You may know Martin if you're online. He's the man behind Michigan Crossbow Hunters. He's very active on my Facebook page, and he does a lot of social media himself. Martin is the high bidder on the fundraising auction that my school, Trinity Monitor Lutheran School in Bay County, we had a fundraising auction for the school. And one of the things we auctioned off was a day of walleye fishing with me on Saginaw Bay aboard the Angler Quest. Martin is the high bidder. So thank you, Martin, for your generosity. We're working on a second trip. There may be a second trip here involved, and I will give you that gentleman's name if he chooses to take advantage of that. But I appreciate it, and it amazes me. I got to be honest, and I know it's for a fundraiser, and that's why. But it amazes me how much people are willing to pay to go fishing with me. Because if you want to go out and catch fish, hire a charter captain. Now, I am a licensed captain, but I'm not a working captain. People say, "Well, you got your license. Why don't you charter?" Several reasons for it. Number one, I don't consider myself to be a good enough angler. I can go out and catch walleye for sure on Saginaw Bay. All right. Anybody can go out and catch walleye on Saginaw Bay. That's not that big a deal. But when the fishing gets tough, I would get very nervous if I had people paying me to catch them fish in a tough bite. And I can't compete with the professional captains out there like a Lance Valentine or a Jeff Godey or a Mark Panonzek or any of the other great captains out there. Also, I think it would be foolish from a business perspective for me to go into business of taking people out and in effect be in competition with my friends, those charter captains and all the other captains across the state, because I go to these guys for information. I go to these guys for content for the radio show. So for me to, have the potential of taking money out of their pocket just wouldn't be right, and I wouldn't feel right about it. But I do have a license, so I'm covered for such things as these charity auctions. And again, Martin Schindel, I appreciate your generosity very, very much. I had an interesting experience last weekend. I was over at Lakeside Motorsports in Mecosta, a part of the state that I really have some fond memories for. Of course, I grew up on the west side of the state, but then I went to school at Ferris, and I had some friends at Central at CMU. So I spent an awful lot of time on M20 between those two schools. Much of it, I got to be honest, hitchhiking back and forth. I didn't have a car, and back then you could hitchhike. I mean, you could. It was okay. It was safe. I wasn't worried about anything. So I spent a lot of time going up and down that road. So it was nice to be back on that side of the state. But back when I was making this trip, Lakeside Motorsports didn't exist, at least not the way it does now. It's a big, beautiful, huge dealership, and I had a chance to visit with a lot of people and share some stories. And one of the stories I heard, I got to be honest, absolutely made my day. In fact, it made my week. There's a guy there at Lakeside Motorsports. He works in the service department. His name is Andy. Andy says he listens to the show. So I was talking to Andy, and he says, "Mike, you are the reason that I got into fishing." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "When I started listening to your show, I heard your excitement and passion for the outdoors and fishing." And he said, "It got me into fishing." How rewarding, how exciting, what a blessing that is. Thank you, Andy. As I told you right then, that was wonderful. Hey, also while I was there, I saw something else that got my attention. You know I'm an Angler Quest guy, right? I love my Angler Quest boats. But I saw a pontoon there, a Manitou pontoon with twin 350-horse outboards. My Angler Quest this summer is going to have a 300-horse Merc on it, and I'm happy as can be. This boat had twin 350-horse outboards. Can you imagine how fast that thing would go? Can you imagine the price tag on a boat like that? $160,000. But hey, if you've got the money, if you earn the money, it's yours. You spend it however you want. God bless you. But that's a little out of the range of most people. Twin 350-horse outboards. What else this week? Well, I'll save that for the rest of the show. What I do want to talk about right now, Easter weekend, right? Easter weekend. What a wonderful, wonderful time of the year. It is the central point of the Christian faith. Without Easter, without the resurrection, without that empty tomb, without a cross, the entire Christian faith would lose its focus. There would be no end goal here. So I realize that, during Easter, we have to have chocolate bunnies and we have to have Easter eggs and things like that for the kids. I get that. But my wish for you this Easter weekend is that you would remember and think about the real meaning for Easter. It's a lot more than the Easter bunny. Again, it's about salvation. It's about faith. It's about giving us meaning here on earth while we're here. So during this blessed Easter weekend, please keep that in mind. Think about it and see if that can somehow help you relate to this world that we're living in. Maybe give yourself more meaning, give yourself purpose, maybe give yourself a sense of peace, knowing that there's more than just this beautiful world. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we're talking springtime morel mushrooms here in Michigan with Clayton Edney from the Michigan Morels Facebook page right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. You can hear us in Port Huron on WPHM 1380 AM. And north of the bridge, in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. It's mucc.org, mucc.org. And a reminder, if you want to save 25% on your MUCC membership, either you're a first-time signing up or your renewal, you can do that. Save 25%. Use the promo code Mike, all caps, MIKE. And keep in mind, MUCC is out there on the forefront. They're involved in the negotiations, the consent decree negotiations about tribal fishing, the wolf hunt discussions. MUCC is all a part of that. I'm a member of MUCC. If you would like to support the group as well, go to mucc.org, use the promo code Mike, all caps, MIKE. While you are online, I would encourage you to check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and head on over to this Facebook page, Michigan Morels on Facebook. I'm already seeing some reports of some morels popping up in the southern part of the state. What gets people excited here in Michigan in the springtime, right? Morel mushrooms. Yeah, we hear about smelt runs. And when the smelt are running, they get people's attention. But morels are everywhere, and the season lasts weeks and weeks. But finding them, identifying them, what to do with them, that's a question a lot of people have. And Clay Edney, Michigan's morel master, is the guy who knows it all. And he joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Clay, welcome to the show. How have you been?
Thanks for having me back again, Mike.
Always
really
a pleasure.
Good. Keeping busy.
Keeping busy with outdoor stuff too, because I know you're a big hunter. How's your year been? We haven't talked for a year. Hunting, fishing, adventures. Been having fun.
Oh yeah. We went out deer hunting up north. Got a deer. Got a little buck. We went down to Detroit River last weekend. I ended up getting a almost 12-pound walleye out of Detroit River.
Is that your best so far?
Oh, yeah, that's the best one.
Man. What's it like? Because I have never caught a walleye that big. What's it like when you set the hook on a walleye that size? Did you know right away you had a tank?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it slammed it. You knew it was something big.
And did you get many fish or just a few big ones?
We ended up, there's 3 in the boat. We had 11 fish total, and then that was the biggest one. I think we had another one like 24 inches. 1 female, and the rest are all males.
Oh, that means the best fishing's yet to come, doesn't it?
Yeah, it hasn't started yet. Yeah.
Good deal, Clay. I'm glad to hear that. So, listen, tell me about this Facebook page. How did this come about? You've been doing this for a few years now. You're like the de facto online source here in Michigan. How did the concept come to fruition?
Well, I think it was about 10 years ago when I got involved in the Facebook world. I started picking morels. I was picking morels, and I found that page. And actually, Michelle, she started it, and there was only 100 people involved with the page at that time. I think we're now up to 60, 70,000 people. So I picked mushrooms pretty early, and I posted pictures on there, and she added me right away on for helping her out, along with a bunch of other guys that do a really good job.
What's the appeal? Why do you spend time in the springtime woods looking for them?
Just sitting down at the dinner table eating them. That's what it's all about. They're the best tasting mushroom that you will ever eat.
Is there a trick to cooking them up? Because the way I've always seen it, the way I've always done it, put a little butter, a little salt and pepper, and fry them up.
Exactly. That's exactly how I do it. Slow fry it. Let the water come out of the mushroom. Let them cook down. Slowly cook down, and just eat them right out of the plate.
Can you freeze them? Can you dry them out at all to save them for later, or just best to eat them right now?
Some people will dry them. Dry them on a string, and then put them in a can and try to keep them for later on, and then just rehydrate them. What I do is I'll cook mine down, do the butter thing, start cooking it down. As soon as you smell it, turn it off, let it cool down. Take all that liquid in the mushrooms and pour it in a freezer bag, lay it flat, and let it freeze. So that way when you get ready to have them again, you unthaw that and pour it back into the frying pan and then finish cooking out the water. And they'll taste just as good as they did the day you picked them.
So save the juice and everything else.
Yep, save everything. Pour everything right into a freezer bag.
Clayton, has the season started? Do you consider this to be morel season now?
It's good. Next week looks like it's going to be the prime time to start looking. We had March 23rd. We're going to give Billy Walters the honors of the first morel pick this year, Oakland County. We've had reports coming out of Monroe County, Berrien County, Allegan, and Berry County so far this year. They're just small ones. Don't go out right now expecting you're going to get a bunch of big ones. I have seen some decent-sized ones coming in the lower counties. But next week looks like it's going to be go time. Why do you say that? What are you seeing? I'm seeing 70-degree weathers during the day and 50s at night. What I go by is I know when somebody's going to get a mushroom because I live down in Kalamazoo or in Allegan County, and I deliver food at night. And as soon as I don't have to wear my jacket for one night, I know somebody's going to pick a mushroom. That's about how I can tell. You get that one warm day where the snow's been melted for a while, and it's going to start. Well, here's the big question. I don't know if there's an easy answer or not, but where do you find them? How do you find them? It's years and years of walking through the woods. What you're going to do is you want to start looking for your popples. Especially there's 3 different mushrooms, morel mushrooms, and 3 different seasons to look for them. The blacks, the grays, the whites, yellows. You start with the black ones. They're a cold morel. They like the cooler weather. Look for your popples, wild cherry, ash, and start looking. It might take you, a while before you finally start finding some good spots. Always keep your eyes out for where people are parked, or maybe you see someone walking through the woods. Maybe go venture out and see what they're looking at. And that's how you get to starting out. It's all about the trees. So you're doing a little cherry picking at first till you find your own spots. Sure, yeah. I mean, if you see somebody out there, you might as well, no different than going fishing. Just keep your eyes open. And then once you find these spots, and once you've got a little experience in the woods, you guard these things like the Holy Grail, don't you? Oh, yeah. There's people that'll babysit them over, every morning out hitting your spots. I used to do it back when I was younger. Could do that when I had the time to do it. You'll start hitting your spots early before anybody else gets there. Will a spot produce morels year after year, the same spot? The black ones I've noticed, I started picking mushrooms probably when I was in my early 20s. The black ones I've noticed, they'll keep growing in that same general area even as the trees get a little bit bigger. What'll happen with the white ones or in the yellow ones, people say, well, I picked too many. They stop growing in that spot. Well, what happens is all the nutrients that the mushroom's eating off of, that tree finally dies off enough where it'll just leave that area and it'll move on to a different tree.
Can you overpick a spot? Can you over-harvest a spot?
I don't think so. It's all about mycelium. It's I've never had any of my black areas die off.
And you've been picking some of these forever?
Forever, 20 plus years. I'm 50 now, 25 years.
Wow. This mycelium, is that the spore that's in them?
Yeah, that's what grows in the ground. The white stuff where you throw a piece of plywood down for a couple of days and you lift it up and it's all covered in white stuff, that's mycelium. That's a mushroom. That's how mushrooms grow. And then springtime they decide, okay, we got to reproduce. And then the actual fruit, the mushroom, is the organism that makes the spores to make more mycelium. It's all science, a lot of science.
A lot of science and a lot of time in the woods.
Lots more. You may spend more time in the woods than you may about the science. Still looking for them.
Now, I have heard that if you get serious about this, there are certain ways you should carry them. I hear, put them in an onion sack so they can drop those spores and make more. Don't put them in a plastic bag because they'll get all mushy. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. Yeah. I can go either way. A lot of times what you're doing is you put it in there. Yes, you do let the spores drop all out. Keeps the dirt from hanging on, staying in the mushroom. Maybe helps it knock the dirt out more. But the way I look at it is if I kept walking out that same trail for the last 10 years, there should be mushrooms going all the way through there, up and down the trail. But that doesn't ever happen.
How do you tell? How do you know it's really a morel and not something that's going to make you sick?
A true morel mushroom, if you cut it in half, it's completely hollow from top to bottom. So that's your first indicator. There'll be, they got another one, it's called a half-free, which is a longer stem. And it's still, if you cut it in half, it comes down about 3/4. It's still a hollow mushroom. And then with the false morels, they call them verpa. If you cut it in half, the tip is like an umbrella. It's sitting right on top of the tip. And usually the stem's full of like a white cotton substance. And then that's a false morel. That's the ones that you don't want to eat.
Yeah, if you eat the wrong one, you can get, some people get really sick, right?
Sick. And then a lot of people talk about the beefsteaks, which are the big ones, the big red, brown things. And some people sit there and say, well, my grandfather ate them for 20 years and never got sick. But they've come to find out that them were toxic, that you build up in your body. I don't ever eat them. There's a lot more to that than I could go into explaining on that one.
So do you eat any mushrooms other than the morels then?
I'll eat the oysters, chicken of the woods, hen of the woods. I'll eat them. But some of them, the oysters you can find in the springtime, and the other ones you can find in the fall.
We're talking with Clay Edney. I call him Michigan's Morel Master. You can find out more about him and the group he's working with on Facebook. Their Facebook page is Michigan Morels on Facebook, Michigan Morels. It's an interesting, foraging, I guess is the old term we would use, right? Looking for food out in the woods, but what a great excuse to get out there in the springtime. Maybe you'll find a few shed antlers. Maybe you can do some turkey scouting. I look for morels, half-heartedly, when I'm turkey hunting. I'm not that good at finding them. In fact, after the break, I want to ask Clay about that. What is the key? Do you get down on your knees? Do you have to develop this sense? I don't know. We'll find out more after the break with Clay Edney from Michigan Morels on Facebook right here on Outdoor Magazine. hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK. That's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. And north of the bridge in Marquette, WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning, been a leader in the archery industry since 1946. That means 2021 is their 75th anniversary. How impressive, how cool is that? Congrats to everybody at Boning Archery. They make everything for bows and arrows except bows and arrows. Check them out online at boning.com. That's BOHNING, boning.com. While you're online, head on over to the Facebook page, Michigan Morels. Clay Edney is one of the guys behind that page. Clay's been looking for morels for 25 years now, and he's got it down to a pretty good science. Clay, what is the secret on how to see them? For example, when I walk through the woods and I'm looking down, I can walk right by them, and the person behind me can see them. I mean, should I get down at ground level? I mean, what are the nuances, the subtleties of what I'm looking for?
Yeah, you can bend over a little bit or get on your knees and look and try to scan like a 5-foot, 10-foot section and like look, glance, and then look ahead. If you're on a hill, like a popple hill, like look up, look for leaves sticking up or something odd and, knock that leaf over. Maybe it's a mushroom poking through. But as soon as you look and find one, stop, start looking around, but look behind you, because you more than likely walk by them or you'll start seeing more.
So if you find one, there's likely more in the area.
Yeah, that's for sure. Definitely keep looking in that area.
So do you have, I know you have a mental list, but do you have anything in writing or somewhere? How do you keep track of all these spots you've discovered over the years?
Yeah, just remember, just going back year after year after year. I mean, there's a lot of times where I used to go up the Jordan River Valley, and I can still remember them areas, and I haven't been up there in 10 years. So I know where to go.
I often hear people say, well, I don't go looking for morels until Mother's Day. But, man, if you wait that long, you've missed a good part of the season, haven't you?
Right. Michigan's so tall from top to bottom. I mean, yesterday I got an email from the DNR to tell them the UP guys to take their ice fishing shanty off. So, down here in the lower Michigan, we're already starting and what we're looking at Easter weekend, which is, it's kind of early, but usually April 15th, about the time we get rolling. Everybody says Mother's Day. Well, I've gone up north and get some for Mother's Day, and I either get black ones or the yellows. I mean, every year is different. You can't go by just a set date. It's the Mother Nature is what decides when it's going to happen.
Now, the blacks and the yellows are both morels, though, right?
Yep. But the blacks have a lot better taste to them.
Is there a third kind of morel, or is it just the two?
Well, I mean, you go the blacks. Some people call them the grays, but you find them around like pine trees. And then when you cut them in half, they're a lot thicker. Now, some people argue and say, well, that's just a premature yellow. But I call them grays because their texture is so much different. And then you get the whites or the yellows, which are the yellow ones are the big yellow ones that, you drive down the road and go, oh, there's mushrooms in that guy's yard.
Oh, well, they kind of look like toadstools. I used to call them toadstools, right?
Right. I don't know if they necessarily a toadstool that's sitting on the side of a tree, but
gotcha.
Coming out,
okay. Yeah.
Sticking out of the yard. Morels don't grow on trees through the ground.
Well, it's a fascinating topic and one that gets a lot of people's attention. But again, nothing beats experience. And you know what? If you go out looking and don't find any, it's not a bad day because you've still been in the woods.
Right. And, if you could take somebody with you that's done it before or can help you out, do that. There's a lot of things in Google. There's a lot of Facebook pages now. If you start looking around, your area might have a county park. Go walk that county park. There's so many state game areas now that you can go venture anywhere around the state for a state game area. Make sure you bring a GPS. A lot of people get lost during this time of the year for looking for mushrooms.
Yeah, because you're walking around with your head down.
Yeah. There's a lot of times where I've looked around and go, uh-oh, this ain't good.
So if I check an area one day and there's nothing there, how long should I wait to come back and take a look again?
Usually a couple days. Usually I used to rotate my spots every 2 days. It's usually I go out, pick, and then I'll leave that for the next. I'll leave it alone the next day, then go the second day, about every 2 days.
Have you ever had a spot that you were convinced was your own private spot and nobody knew about it, and you got in there and found somebody there?
Oh yeah, for sure, all the time.
Yeah.
There ain't no secrets around this area.
I guess you can't be too territorial, right? Because they're not yours unless they're growing on your property. I guess they're not yours.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Allegan Forest, for example. I mean, how small that area that really is compared to going up north to Jordan River Valley, which you can hike forever and get to a spot and there's a little man staying there picking mushrooms.
And he's been going there 40 years.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, Clay, listen, I always enjoy our conversations. You are a wealth of information. I'll send people to the Facebook page, Michigan Morels, for all kinds of advice on where to find them, when they're coming up, what to look for, what to do with them. Clay, appreciate your time, and we'll talk again soon. Enjoy your hunting and fishing adventures. All
right, good luck hunting, and good luck turkey hunting, and happy Easter.
All right, happy Easter to you as well, and I'll take all the luck I can get turkey hunting. We'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. I'm going to be lucky than skilled anytime. A break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll wrap up this first hour with Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews. Haven't talked to Tom for a couple of weeks. Actually, it's been a few weeks. We'll see what's going on with him. And then in hour number 2, we're talking about charter fishing in northern Michigan with Jim Chamberlain and Lee Osterland from the DNR talking about fire danger. It is fire season right here in Michigan. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the show in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Flint on Super Talk, on WTRX 1330. And you can hear us in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. WTRX, our newest affiliate. So glad to be working with those guys again. WTRX was the first radio affiliate that I ever had. News, Talk, and Sports, they're called these days. The first radio affiliate that I ever had. No, it's called Sports Extra. I'm sorry. I'm getting my stations confused. But TRX was the first affiliate I ever had. They're our most recent affiliate, and I appreciate those guys working with me. WTRX in Flint, 1330 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. For more info, check them out online, linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. While you're online, please check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and head on over to woods-n-waternews.com, woods-n-waternews.com, the website of Woods-n-Waternews. Tom Campbell with us once again. Tom, how have you been?
Great, Mike. How about yourself?
Well, it's springtime. Turkey season's coming up. I mean,
2 weeks.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm with you, Mike. In fact, I actually snuck out this morning and did a little road scouting, and oh my gosh, with that beautiful sunrise, that sun, and seeing a few times in those open fields, oh man, it gets your blood going, just like they were. They were all glowing red and white too. So, yeah, it's awesome. I do love my spring turkey hunting.
Oh, sure. I do as well. And it's something that didn't exist here in Michigan, when we were kids growing up, certainly.
That's exactly right. Whoever heard of a turkey? Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we were just, Randy and myself, we were reflecting on our first turkey hunts that we'd drive up to Hubbard Lake and in our cars and sleep in our cars, and we didn't know what the heck we were doing. And it was amazing to see these big 20-pound birds walk by you in the morning, and all the mistakes we made and all the things we did wrong. But yeah,
and you say we didn't know what we were doing. Sometimes I still don't know what I'm doing turkey hunting, Tom.
Right. I know what I'm doing is probably wrong. That's for sure. Yeah. The turkeys sure do know what they're doing. That's they got it on us. But
so how are things going at Woods-n-Waternews?
So things are going good. 5 months away from hopefully the 35th Woods-n-Waternews Outdoor Weekend. We're still putting the plans together for that. It's going strong. Everybody's excited and positive, looking forward to finally having a retail show. And so it's a tough situation for us to be in, because you're kind of planning two ways. Are we going to go regular show? This is how we've always done it, or are they going to put parameters and regulations on us, number wise, vendor wise? So it's a double-edged sword, but it's still positive that we could get to plan again, and hopefully everything will be fine, and we'll all be immune and vaccinated, and things will be semi-normal by September. Let's hope.
If that's the case, thinking about it, the big Woods and Water Outdoor Weekend would be the first big outdoor-related event in our state in a couple of years.
It's exactly. We just said that this morning. We even said maybe even the Midwest would be about the only shows. So yeah, that part's real exciting, and I let's just hope it comes true and everything goes well for everybody. So
well, in the meantime, you've still got a little thing called a magazine you got to put out every month.
Absolutely, yes. Our April issue is out. Should be at your favorite newsstand or in your mailbox, hopefully, if you subscribe, or online too, because that's always a growing part of Woods and Water News. But it's loaded with great spring fishing information. Of course, we've got the turkey hunting situation covered real well, and everything's real positive about the numbers and turkey population. So hopefully we can have another year like we did last year, with lots and lots of turkey hunters out there and lots of success, and everybody shares that success with us. But yeah, and the April issue's also got some great stories in there, that not only on the fishing and the hunting, but we've got interesting piece on cougars in Michigan, put out by the DNR. What are those ghost cats doing, and what's going on with them? And some controversial, what's Jeff Pendergrass, who retired CO for the DNR, is asking what's going on about the wolf hunt. Wisconsin had a wolf hunt already, and Michigan doesn't even seem to be talking about a wolf hunt. And so he's concerned about that.
So you've got a retired CO. You got a retired CO or doing some writing for you now?
Oh, yeah. Jeff Pendergrass is a CO, who's a retired sergeant from the CO. Yeah, he does a great job. He reflects back to some cases from the 80s and some of the things they did back then, and it's fantastic. But then he keeps up to date on this particular the wolf hunt, what's going on there. And,
he would certainly have an interesting perspective, and now he can say what he wants.
Exactly right.
Well, I will look forward to that and all of the other great stories, and we will hope and pray that you can have the big outdoor weekend coming up in September. Thank you, as always, to Tom Campbell of Woods and Water News. The website, woods-n-waternews.com, woods-n-waternews.com. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, Jim Chamberlain will be with us. Lee Osterland will be with us. This week's Ask Avery segment. And coming up in our third hour, Al Stewart, a biologist who's been with the DNR for 50 years, is retired. We'll talk with him about his career and turkey hunting in general. And again, once again, thank you to our newest affiliate, WTRX Sports Extra 1330 in Flint.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. Also, welcome to the month of April. A blessed Easter weekend to you as well. My name is Mike Avery, and I'm so glad to have you along with us. This is a 3-hour weekly radio show airing on nearly 30 stations here across the great state of Michigan. We talk about the outdoors, hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping, wildlife, conservation issues, even some wild game cooking as well. And I say radio show. The show is scheduled, produced, recorded, distributed primarily as a radio show. And I think the best way to listen, if you can, is on your local AM or FM station. Not all of our affiliates carry all 3 hours of the show, and that's fine. That's understandable. I appreciate any access to any of our affiliates. And there are some people, believe it or not, in our state who live in areas that can't hear the broadcast version of the show. I think that should be illegal myself, but... and so if you can't hear the broadcast version of the show, it's nice to know there's always the podcast as a backup. Podcasting is huge these days. I also do a podcast version of the radio show. But in this case, the podcast is exactly the same content. I take the audio from the radio show and I make it available online as a podcast. So if you can't hear the broadcast version, there's always a backup. Places you can hear the podcast, well, anywhere you can hear a podcast, I think you can hear the Outdoor Magazine podcast, but check it out. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, is one place. I put it on the Facebook page as well, Mike Avery Outdoors Facebook page. You can hear us on Amazon Music, on Audible, on Twitter, LinkedIn, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player FM, Deezer, Radio.com, and even YouTube. So if you want to listen to the podcast version of the show, it's out there. Also, I have a podcast network where I produce monthly podcasts for Jay's Sporting Goods, Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Killer Food Plots, Polar Craft Boats, and Shadowhunter Blinds. And this week, for the first time in a long time, we're actually, since it's a 5-week month for us, we're not recording any podcasts today. And Pat, it seems a little strange, doesn't it? Just to do a 3-hour radio show seems a little strange. Anyway, regardless of how you are hearing my voice, whether the podcast or the broadcast, thank you very much. I would encourage you to join me online as well. The website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. On Facebook and Instagram, I'm quite active there as well. Check out our Wednesday night lives every Wednesday night on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Vimeo. We do about a 45-minute program. Gives you and I a chance to interact, shoot the breeze a little bit. Look forward to having you join me there. A couple of weeks ago, I was at Maple Bay Marine in Brutus, in the northern part of the state, doing some work for Angler Quest. And I ran into a guy that I had actually interviewed on an Angler Quest podcast. His name is Jim Chamberlain. He's a charter captain, a fishing guide in northern Michigan, but he does not concentrate primarily or exclusively on the big lakes like a lot of the captains do. You can learn more about him on his website, fishwithjimoutfitters.com, fishwithjimoutfitters.com. And it reminded me what an interesting guy this is, what interesting fisheries he gets involved in. And I thought he'd be a great guest for the show, and he has graciously agreed, and he joins us now. Jim, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mike. How are you?
I'm wonderful. It was nice to see you here a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it was nice to put a name to the face finally. We've been doing these interviews, here and there over the last, maybe 10 years or so.
Yeah.
And it was nice to finally meet you in person.
Well, I enjoyed it as well. Tell me about your business. I find the fisheries, the bodies of water that you fish on, very interesting.
Yeah, this time of year, I bounce back and forth from the river to the lakes. I do some fishing on the Jordan River, some fishing on Torch Lake, some fishing on Elk Lake, and then also some fishing on Grand Traverse Bay. Each one of the places, they have special things that happen. The last couple weeks we've been fishing Torch Lake because, it's really the only one that's been completely ice-free up until recently.
Well, when I hear you talk about these bodies of water, I think these are some of the most beautiful lakes and most beautiful scenery in our state. What a place to work.
Yeah, it's a great office. I can't lie about that. Especially, on the new platform that I picked up a couple of years ago, that 24-foot Angler Quest Pro Troll. That's That's just a great platform. We were out yesterday on Torch, and I don't know what it was like for you guys, but there was a really, really bad wind yesterday.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, and luckily on Torch Lake, there's some bluffs on the west side, and you know it allows you to kind of tuck out of it. You know, we had some pretty good seas, but it was really interesting to try to get boat speed right and you know things like that yesterday. It was interesting. It was I wouldn't say it was the best catch we've had, but for the conditions, I thought we did pretty good.
Isn't that Angler Quest an amazing fishing machine?
It is, and you know the fact that you know they had the foresight to put you know the spots to clip in the sea bags and stuff on there. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's you know most of the boats you buy, you kind of have to rig those up makeshift, you know, on whatever cleats are available. But those guys actually put a loop underneath the side load doors where you can clip your bag in, and that really helped us out in the last couple of days with, you know, with the winds that we dealt with, for sure.
Are your trips all, or at least mostly, trolling trips, Jim?
No, we do some jigging trips too. You know, we target burbot early in the season like this too, but you know that has not been nearly as good as you know the trout fishing that we've been doing. That for whatever reason, the trout bite has been really good there. We've been getting some browns, you know, some smaller Atlantics, and some lake trout.
Well, and I'll get to those in a minute, but you bring up burbot. I can't let that go by. I've never fished burbot. I don't know anything about them. Help me out.
Well, it's, you know, there's this time of year, so from like mid-March, you know, through probably mid-April, you can target those things on Torch Lake. Basically, you know, any place where you can find grass on your hooks, like the milfoil, they spawn in that. And, you know, typically people think it's a night fishery, but this time of year, it really doesn't matter the time of day you go. You know, you jig with, you know, like S-jigs, sand kickers, what would they, like fluke minnows, that kind of thing on, you know, jigs that are anywhere between 3/4 and 1.5 ounce.
Are you bouncing them off the bottom or jigging them above the weeds?
Bottom contact. So, you know, you make your bottom contact for a while and then pull it up and pull the weeds off of them. But if there's no bottom contact, typically you don't catch them.
What size are these fish, and are they a good fighting fish?
Oh, great fighting fish. You know, this year the ones that we've caught have been, you know, 18 to 26 inches probably. You know, typically you get some that are over 30 this time of year. Oh. And I don't know if we just missed it with the way that the weather's been, you know, or what. I don't, you know, every year is different, you know, with fishing, as I'm sure that you know. You know, there's no
every day is different.
Yeah, there's just no calendar that gives you that guarantee that all the clients want. You know, everybody wants that picture perfect day.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
You know, a lot of times there's a lot of adjustments that got to be made. You know, and you know, one thing that I have noticed this year that's really interesting is that, you know, we didn't have nearly the snowfall here that we've had in the past. And, you know, typically in the spring, Torch Lake is not nearly as clear as what it is. And we're seeing the bottom in 60 feet of water.
Wow.
You know, and that's an interesting deal. We need some rain. We need to get stuff stirred up a little bit.
You know, as a Saginaw Bay guy, I'm used to seeing, you know, not visibilities like that. I can't imagine. How do you fish in crystal clear water like that?
Yeah, same way you do everywhere else. You know, the fish, you know, we put stuff out, you know, long lines on stuff, and, you know, 150, 200 feet behind planer boards. You know, the one thing I've noticed about that clear water this year is it really has affected the downrigger bite. You know, typically our downriggers are the best rods on the boat. This year, I think we've caught maybe 2 or 3 fish on the downriggers. That's it. You know, that's very abnormal. Normally that rod, if we catch, you know, 7, 8 trout in a trip, that one will be responsible for 4 to 6 of them.
We're talking with Jim Chamberlain. He is a Northern Michigan charter captain. You can learn more about him and what he has to offer on his website, fishwithjimoutfitters.com, fishwithjimoutfitters.com. He fishes some beautiful water for some very interesting fish in the Atlantic. So I want to talk more about that. But first, we got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, talk a little bit more with Jim about his operation, his business, where he catches fish, how he catches fish, how he uses that Angler Quest, and maybe pick his brain on some other things as well. Following Jim, Lee Osterland from the DNR will be along with us. This is the time of year to be concerned about wildfires. We'll be talking about that. And then this week's Ask Avery question, why are there specific time periods to apply for Michigan licenses? Why aren't they open year-round? Well, we'll answer that question on this week's Ask Avery segment right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY AM and FM, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC, again, AM and FM, 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain on WMIQ, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Wilds Plumbing and Heating. From plumbing, heating, air conditioning, sump pumps, ductwork cleaning, you name it. Everything to keep the mechanics of your house running smoothly, to keep you comfortable, to keep you confident and not worrying about things breaking down. And if they do break down, you know who to fix them. The folks at Wilds can take care of you. Check them out online at wildsplumbingandheating.com. That's wildsplumbingandheating.com. While you are online, I would ask you to check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Seriously considering about revamping that website. I like the content, but I'm not a real... We just redid it a couple of years ago, but I think it's time to spruce it up again. I will be talking with Marie, our webmaster, about that. But also check out this website, fishwithjimoutfitters.com, fishwithjimoutfitters.com, the website of Jim Chamberlain, who's a Northern Michigan fishing guide and charter captain. And Jim, I've seen you do some very cool shows with the folks at Michigan Out of Doors, haven't you?
I have, yeah. We did a really nice piece on lake trout fishing last summer with Brad Dupree out there. That was really pretty cool.
Yeah, of course, Brad, Mr. Angler Quest himself.
Yeah, that was a fun show. I was talking to Eric down there at Angler Quest and was just letting him know that we need to do something else with some of these other unique things. And the burbot was one of those things that I was thinking, and then maybe next season on Torch with the Atlantics when they grow up a little bit more. They're on pace to be really nice fish by next season. Right now they're 15 to 21 inches. The majority of them. We did get one. Was it yesterday or the day before that was 23? Some of them just find a little bit more bait than others.
Well, let's talk about those Atlantics. Again, a fish I've never caught that I know of, but I guess I think some people catch them and don't know what they are, don't you?
I do. I think they mix them up with browns a lot. They're so similar, but the Atlantics, they just have a lot less spots for the most part. I've seen some of them that have a lot of spots, but there's two things about them that really define them. The tail is completely different. Atlantics have more of a forked tail, and they have that bone in there, so you can actually grab a hold of them by the tail. And then they're totally different colors. If you lay them side by side, one of them will be more of an electric blue color on the top, and the other one will be that olive brown on the top. But when you catch them in the lakes, most of them can be most of the ones we do catch in the lakes are silver, unless we get them in the fall, and then they're all colored up.
And that is obviously that's a stocked fishery, right?
It is 100% stocked. Lake Huron took a precedence over the last 5 or 6 years over Torch Lake. Torch Lake used to be stocked by Lake Superior State with the extras that they weren't putting in the St. Mary's. And then the DNR started their own hatchery program for them. And, the people over in Lake Huron have been really trying to find a replacement for those kings over there. And Atlantics are a pretty cool fit for over there. I do go up to Detour, Drummond Island area, and fish there for the last 2 weeks of June every year. It's kind of a neat place for me because, I went to Lake Superior State, and I get to catch, the fish that my college has been stocking. And it's a pretty unique thing for me to go do. I do one trip a day up there, and, I spend some time with the family, just after everybody gets out of school.
You don't hesitate to put that angler quest on the trailer and make a move, do you?
No. Between 20 and 30,000 miles a year I trailer that.
Wow. Just here in Michigan? You must go out of state too then.
No, I haven't had it out of state, but, when I go to Grand Traverse Bay, it's roughly 100 miles a day. And our season's not just Memorial Day to Labor Day. I start as soon as the snow leaves, basically. And like last year, we didn't put the boat away until I want to say December 10th.
Wow. Well, and you are a full-time year-round captain, right? I mean, you run river trips as well?
River trips, and we also do the ice too. So it's a year-round job for me. That was, when I first started this 1998, so what is that, 23 years ago? One of the captains that I started with, he told me, he said, anybody can go get a job, but if you could figure out how to fish all your life, that would be kind of fun, wouldn't it? And it was just a joke at the time, but it's not a joke anymore. It's actually what I do. I fish a lot. I don't know. I mean, with COVID last year, that kind of threw my days off. But, it seems like this year and late last year, the phone rang a lot more, because the borders were shut down in Canada. A lot of people lost their fly-in trips. And then also, all the things that people were doing, like going to concerts and all of that kind of things for their entertainment, all that stuff got pretty shut down. So now there's a lot more pressure on the outdoors. That's good and bad, but it's good for me right now. The business is doing very well because of it.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm always fascinated, though, to talk to a guy like you, because in my somewhat limited experience compared to yours as far as hours on the water, when I go out fishing with myself or with my buddies, I mean, there is absolutely no pressure. If we catch fish, fine. If we don't catch a lot of it doesn't matter. We're just out there to have a good time. But when I start taking out groups of people who are looking to me for a good day on the water and to catch some fish, I immediately start to feel a pressure there. And a guy like you who's getting paid for people, to catch people fish every day, day in and day out, does that change that experience on the water for you?
It did for a while, but, when you're the owner of the company, you always got to tell yourself in the back of your head, if you don't feel like you did your job, you can always have them come back. You don't have to charge them the second time. So, when you start to tell yourself that and take the pressure off, that's when you can be yourself and do what you do with your friends, if that makes sense. And then, the other thing too is, on the calendar every year we get, people that fish with you enough to where they become friends. Mm-hmm. Even though they still are paying for the trip, they're more than just clients. You know what I mean?
No, I do. Yeah, absolutely.
The pressure's off, especially when they know what your capabilities are.
Of all the different cool things you fish for and the cool places you fish for them, do you have a favorite?
I still like Torch Lake. It's just such a mystical place. The water's so clear. It's very intimidating for a lot of people because of that. It's different. I mean, a lot of times, if you tuned into the Michigan Outdoors clip we did last year, we were running our downriggers down like 220 to 250 feet down.
Wow.
And catching those lake trout. And most people would say, oh, yeah, we'll just put a Dodger spin and glow or flash or spin and glow combo down there. No, we're using spoons, because that traditional lake trout stuff that we used out in Lake Michigan, it doesn't work as good. Some of the spoons have been a lot better for me. And I typically like doing that too, because you never know what you're going to catch down there along with the lake trout. We've caught brown trout down 200 feet in that lake, and I was just talking to Matt Sapinski out of Muskegon there a little while ago, and I was telling him, like, we've caught some really nice browns there this spring, but it's just not the traditional way to brown trout fish. I mean, we've got, deep lead course catching them.
Yeah, that's not what I think of as springtime brown fishing at all.
No, but the bait's different. We got Cisco's in there, and those Cisco's, they don't come up on the beach, like the alewives do. Mm-hmm. That's not what they do. They're down in 150 feet, and the bottom 80 feet of that. So, while there are some of the browns that do come up on the beach, that's not where the majority of them are at. The majority of them are still out in the middle of the lake. Maybe associated to structure, maybe not.
Is your river fishing done for the year, for the season?
I don't think it's really started here, to be honest.
Really?
We've had low water. We just haven't had that really significant water event to trigger anything yet. So we haven't really had a very good go at that quite yet.
So we need and you didn't get a lot of snow melt. So we need a good all-day rain to get some water flowing.
Yeah, maybe a couple days of it. We might have to sacrifice a couple days of fishing out of my schedule to get some things kicked off. Because there are a couple places up here that just got runs this week for the first time. But normally we get that really significant snow melt. Where we get 3 to 4 feet of it that melts off. Well, at the end of it, it was a slow melt. And it really just didn't run off that good.
I hear you talk about runs. Makes me think. Have you heard anything about any smelt runs at all anywhere?
I just heard of some last night, actually, somewhere up in the UP. Of course, they didn't tell me where it was at.
Of course not.
I have my suspicions.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I'm thinking that that's going to get kicked off pretty good.
Yeah, I think a lot of things are going to get kicked off here in the next couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah, and it looks like finally some nice temperatures. Right now I'm looking outside and it's snowing.
Oh.
It's I don't know. It's the weather is just really up and down. This time of year.
Yeah.
It's just it's a weird thing. I mean, even going back to a little bit about the Atlantics. A lot of times those things will run to the mouths of the rivers where, there's on Torch Lake, there's the Clam River that dumps into Torch, and that always puts out warmer water this time of year. I think I was in there maybe a half a week ago or so, and the water was nearly 40 degrees, and the rest of the lake was like 34 to 35. Wow.
Hey, Jim, listen, I am so sorry to cut you off, but I am out of time. I don't have a lot of control over that because Pat's sitting here with his finger on the button, and as soon as he presses the button, I'm done. So Jim Chamberlain, appreciate your time. The website fishwithjimoutfitters.com, fishwithjimoutfitters.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake, Houghton Lake and all points north, from central Michigan, northern Michigan, all the way to the bridge on WUPS 98.5. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM and in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Speedy Blaze. This is going to lead into our next topic here. Speedy Blaze is a safe, clean, water-resistant alternative to firewood. It's insect-resistant, water-resistant, safe to cook over because it's made from recycled hardwood. You can put it in your grill, campfire, fireplace, any place you can use wood, you can use Speedy Blaze. Check out the website, speedyblaze.com. That's speedyblaze.com. By the way, a Michigan-based company, you know I love that. But right now, you would want to be very careful with your Speedy Blaze fire, or any fire, in fact, because it is that time of year when things are dry, they haven't greened up yet, and it will be for a while now. Lee Osterland with the DNR wants to talk with us more about that. Lee, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good this morning, Mike. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, I'm glad to have you along with us. This is a very touch-and-go time of year for you guys, isn't it?
It is. This year especially has been pretty crazy. We've ran on about 70 fires so far to date this year for about 1,013 acres. Compared to last year, at this time, we only ran about 8 fires.
Wow.
20 acres. So very dramatic this year. So it's been a pretty busy year so far.
Lee, how are these fires starting?
Well, 9 out of the 10 wildfires we respond to are caused by people. And the vast majority of those, about 35% of all wildfires, are caused by people burning debris. They're out enjoying the nice weather. We all like to be outside. And they pick up their branches and stuff from the trees, rake their yard, and figure it's a good time to burn, which there's nothing wrong with that. You just got to take the proper precautions.
If you start so if you're burning brush or whatever at your house and it gets out of control and goes somewhere else, you're responsible for that, aren't you?
That's correct. There's laws out there that the person is responsible for the damages and the suppression action if they allow a fire to escape. And that, fines vary depending on the location. The counties tend to have their own. But in addition to the fines that a person could get, they could get a ticket. A lot of times the fire departments and we as a DNR charge for the fire run, depending on how long we're out there, the cost of the trucks and the manpower and stuff, which a lot of fire departments do as well. So there's some additional costs there too if a person allows a fire to escape.
So, burn permits. When do we need a burn permit, and are they being issued now?
Yes, they are being issued now. Anytime the ground is not snow covered, Michigan law requires a burn permit being needed. Now, depending on where you're at, most of the northern part of the lower and the UP, the DNR issues the permits. In the southern lower, a lot of those permits are handled by the local townships or counties. So there are numbers out there where a person can call to see what the current conditions are. For example, if we get into very high or extreme fire danger, we will shut the permits down or limit them till after 6 if the fire danger is high. So the best thing to do is call that number, jump on the website, find out what the conditions are for the day, and if you can get a permit, and that tells you right at a glance if it's, for the most part, if it's safe to burn or not.
Why after 6? Why is that a better time to burn?
Typically, the weather patterns that we have in Michigan, once you get later into evening, the relative humidity comes up, and that's how dry the air is. And once that moisture in the air gets up, the chance of fire escaping is lessened. The wind typically dies down in the evening, so it just allows a person more control, whereas during the day, in the afternoon from 12 to noon to 6 is the driest time of the day and afternoon.
An out-of-control fire is a bad thing, but fire in itself isn't necessarily bad. I mean, you guys actually do prescribed burns for habitat improvement, don't you?
We do. There's a lot of divisions within the DNR. There's 3 main divisions that use fire as a management tool. It's Forest Resource Division, Wildlife Division, and Parks and Recreation Division. And, last year, 2020, was a weird year, as we all know, with the pandemic. So we didn't do any burning. But the year before, 2019, we did 92 prescribed burns for almost 10,000 acres, which has been our average. So we burn for wildlife habitat, grasslands, for the wildlife that benefit from the grassy areas. We do understory burns for oaks to help prepare the site for oak seedlings. We do understory burns and pine plantations. We have most people are familiar with Phragmites, that invasive species along our lake shores. We've done burns for that as well to help reduce that invasive species. So lots of different types of burns that we do to help manage our habitats. And like you said, it is very beneficial. Nature, loves fire for the most part, and we try to mimic what goes on in nature with our prescribed burns.
Lee, I appreciate you bringing us up to speed on that, and thanks for everything you guys do. I spent some time with the DNR fire crews years ago, and it was very, very interesting. The website for the DNR, michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. Take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment. Again, dealing with the DNR, why are there specific periods to apply for licenses? Why isn't it open year-round? Well, we'll answer that question after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Taos on WIOS, AM and FM, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And you can hear us on the other side of the state in St. Joe on WSJM, 94.9 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you every week by Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure as well. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. And by now you probably know how the Ask Avery segment works. But if you're new to the show, well, first of all, welcome. Thanks for listening. This is something I do at the end of the second hour each week, and it's an opportunity for you as a listener to be directly involved in the content of the show. So if you have a question that you would like to ask me directly, or if a question you would like me to find the answer out from somebody else, please let me know. Probably the easiest way is to send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com is my email address, and just tell me it's for the Ask Avery segment. You can also hit me up on any of the social media platforms as well, but I think an email, again, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com is the best way to go. This week, Jeff sent me an email. He says, Mike, about the Ask Avery question. He says, why does the DNR have time slots for putting in for permits? He says, for example, I think bear permits is the month of May only. He said, for instance, that bear permits can only be put in the month of May. Why can the deadline be May 31st and then reopen June 1st for next year? Well, Jeff, I think that's a good, legitimate, reasonable question. And I certainly didn't know the answer to that. So I went to the DNR. I talked with Ed Golder, who is their public relations director. And here's what he says. Species application periods are part of a broader annual timeline, which includes review and approval of hunting regulations for each species, hunter application for licenses, license points, and points awards, like for bear and elk, license sales, and the open season for each species. So he says the application period for each species can only occur after the final NRC approval of species regulations for the upcoming season. All right, that makes sense. They got to wait and see what the NRC is going to do. So those regulations define the hunting structure, the hunting dates, license quotas to be used to develop the hunt choices hunters see when they apply. So the NRC has to confirm the seasons and approve the quotas, the number of licenses they're going to let out. He says bear and elk points are maintained at the time of each drawing based on each applicant's results. It's important that the license and the points be awarded at the same time. Again, this makes sense too. So for the current license year, there's no confusion about the hunter's points and the chance for each drawing. And that makes sense. If I've got 5 bear points, it's at a specific time of the year. So that makes sense. He says, for example, if a bear point is awarded in 2021, we know that individual who received that point applied in 2021. And finally, he says competition is fierce for some of these licenses. We know this, don't we? We know this, bear and elk hunters. For example, they have 40,000 applicants for 260 elk licenses. Keeping the application period on the shorter side just makes it easier to handle. It prevents those applicant pools from growing even larger, making it that much harder for an individual hunter to get one of those available tags. So I think every one of those is a reasonable, legitimate answer. So Ed Golder at the DNR, I appreciate that. The regarding a Michigan elk tag, I've said for the last few years, and even though the numbers have been skewed lately because of COVID, I still think it's the best way to go. I think your best odds of getting a Michigan elk tag, at least until quite recently, have been to go with the pure Michigan hunt. Reason being, there used to be fewer people who applied for pure Michigan than they did for the elk tag. I think that's changed now, but you can put in multiple applications for the pure Michigan hunt. For $5, you can apply as many times as you want. And if you get a pure, and they let out 3 of those, and 3 pure Michigan tags. And if you get a pure Michigan elk tag, it's a bull tag, which is almost impossible to get if you go through the standard elk drawing. Regardless, on the whole license issue, just a reminder, it is April, so it's time to get your new hunting and fishing licenses. You don't have to get you are going to have to get your turkey license now and your base license. So you might as well get them all. I think $76 got me my base license, my all species fish, and my combo deer tag. I think that's a pretty good deal. For $76, I will take that. I will gladly pay that. People gripe about the prices, but I don't know. I can't think of anything else I can do for $76 that I can enjoy every day of the year. So I think it's a pretty good deal. So thank you, Jeff, for asking the question. Again, he sent me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. You can do the same. If you have a question, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Ed Golder, I appreciate the answer on this week's question. And as always, thank you to my friends at Security Credit Union for helping to make each week's Ask Avery segment possible. They love to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can work with you as well. securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. We will take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, the third hour of this week's show, we're going to wrap it up with Al Stewart. He has retired. By the time you hear this show, after 50 years with the DNR, he has retired as an upland game bird specialist and a DNR biologist. He's an expert and avid turkey hunter. We'll talk with him about his career, about turkey hunting and more, and then we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar. That's this week right here on Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Yes, indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. Welcome to the month of April. I wish you a blessed Easter weekend if you're listening to the broadcast version of this show, and I really appreciate you being along with us. This is a wonderful time of year, isn't it? I mean, great fishing coming up, turkey season. You know I love turkey hunting. Of course, turkeys weren't around when I was a kid growing up on the west side of the state. This whole turkey hunting thing is fairly new here in Michigan. Our guest this hour has seen, he's seen a lot in his years at the DNR. His name is Al Stewart. You know Al. I've talked to him many times. A great guy. He's an upland game bird specialist. nationally known upland game bird specialist, recognized by his peers across the country. He is also an avid and expert turkey hunter. I have learned an awful lot just from talking with Al about turkey hunting. And he spent a big part of the DNR, the Michigan DNR, for many, many years. But guess what? By the time you hear this show, Al has retired. I know, say it ain't so. I never thought Al would retire. But he did. And we're talking with him on the last day, as we're recording the show, the last day on the job. And he's graciously given us a few minutes. Al, welcome back to the show. Congrats.
Oh, thanks, Mike, and thanks for the kind words and years of friendship. We've done this these kinds of talks since you had your first show. So it's been fun to grow along with you and just be able to share our thoughts on the outdoors, hunting and fishing. So
I've enjoyed, well, thank you, Al. I've enjoyed every conversation we've had. How many years then were you at the DNR?
Well, I started as a student in 1970, and I was paid by Hiram Kitchen at MSU and Dwayne Ulrey to work at the Wildlife Pathology Lab at Rose Lake. And so I kind of worked and volunteered through there, and then was hired there as a student in the early 70s there, and then and ended up getting a job as a wildlife technician at one point, and then as a biologist, and now I'm here 50 years down the road.
50 years.
Seems like just yesterday.
It's a cliche about time flying, but I've noticed that as I get older, the years do just fly by, don't they?
Oh, they do. And, yesterday we had because of COVID-19, we had a little virtual retirement event for me, and it was really cool. Normally we hold these in person, but it was really cool, and it brought back so many great memories, and so many kind words that constituent groups and friends and professional folks that I've worked with shared their thoughts. So it was, as they say, heartwarming.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Al, did you ever think, as a kid, when you were looking at what you were going to do with your life, I mean, was the goal always to be a wildlife biologist? Was the goal to end up with the DNR? Do you even remember?
Well, yeah, well, I remember real clearly. It was, I may have been 12 about, and, in the day, National Geographic, on your TV, of which you only got a couple of channels, had this show about the Yellowstone and the grizzly bears of Yellowstone with the Craighead brothers. And I was mesmerized by that show. And usually they were like an hour type show, big deal. And I just looked at that and said, that is what I want to do. And I didn't know they were wildlife biologists or research biologists, because they trap these bears in the culvert traps, but then they had these drugs that they injected in with the tranquilizer to put them to sleep. So I thought they were wildlife veterinarians. And I worked on a farm. I grew up on the Van Heusen farm in the Rochester area, which is now a historic site surrounded by urban growth. But I grew up on that and had, just the ability to go anywhere and do anything. There was a stream in there. And so I just always liked to watch, the ducks migrate through in the spring and catch fish in the creek and, kid stuff, when you're outdoors. But when I was in high school, I worked for a large animal veterinarian, because our school only went, we were on half days. So I went to school in the morning and had all afternoon to work for this veterinarian. And so I wanted to be a wildlife veterinarian, but there weren't many around. And there was one I read about in, the Wyoming Wildlife magazine that came to the library in school. And I, read through copies, till the pages were torn. And one of the people there was a wildlife veterinarian that they talked about for Wyoming. And I just was drawn to it. And so anyway, I came up to Michigan State University and got into animal technology, kind of a pre-vet mode. And my first class that I was there was a guy by the name of Dr. Hiram Kitchen, and he was teaching us how to kind of handle large animals. Well, I was a pro at it. I mean, I that's what I did. And so, I had like 4 or 5 years of being able to do that. So he looked at me real quick and said, "Boy, this is pretty good." He kind of took an interest in me, and then he, at the end of that class, he said, "So what would you like to do, kind of when you grow up?" And I said, "I'd like to be a wildlife veterinarian." And he said, "Well, this is kind of like your lucky day, because I'm the wildlife veterinarian for the Detroit Zoo and Otter Park Zoo and all of these other places. And, are you available on Thursday afternoon to go to the Detroit Zoo and work on polar bears with me?"
Oh, my goodness.
"Oh, you bet. I'm in." and then from there, he took me to Rose Lake because there were, those deer nutritional studies that were going on. And from there, he introduced me to Dwayne Allery, who was the animal nutritionist, and did all the research with deer nutrition, at Porter Ranch, and even parts of the stuff at Kuzno in our deer research facilities. So it was just, one of those, being at the right place, the right time with the right person. And, and there was a guy by the name of Bill Hewitt that was at in charge of the pathology lab at Rose Lake. And he took me under his wing and mentored me for, many years. And then finally, actually hired me as a short-term worker type of deal. And I got to travel all over the state with the pathology lab looking at loons with botulism, bats with rabies, all those things. So it was, get to catch Canada geese and, take blood samples from them. And, I was kind of in heaven, but I knew, I wanted to go in that direction. But even in the early part there with the DNR, I was looking at being a wildlife veterinarian. I didn't realize there were actually biologists that did, things like that too. So, once my learning curve jumped up a little bit, I was, able to pursue that and, move on in those directions too.
How cool is it to be able to spend 50 years doing something that you love?
Oh, it's pretty cool. I always say I have the best job in the world. And, I believe that every day was a great day. There were a couple hours, that in a year that you could say, what on earth was that all about? But beyond that, many times we criticize folks in the DNR or, some of the other resource professionals, but the reality of it in my experience has been there are just a lot of professional folks out there doing things, and they have an equal love for, getting in and working with wildlife, working with fish.
Well, hey, you ended up working with critters that everybody loves. Upland game birds, turkeys, there was no downside. What if you would have ended up being a deer biologist? Then everybody would hate you. See, you ended up in a good spot, Al.
Well, that's true. But in the 70s when I was there, the job to have was the deer biologist.
Really?
And there was a point where, I was, it was kind of like, gosh, when you were hired into wildlife division, your goal was to be the deer biologist or the wildlife division chief.
Well, hang on, Al. Listen, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I do have to take a break here. You're listening to Al Stewart, upland game bird specialist for the DNR, worked for the DNR for 50 years, nationally known upland game bird specialist and turkey expert, retiring after 50 years. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about that, and we'll see where else the conversation takes us with Al Stewart right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM and 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on ESPN 1400 WKNW. I've been holding out hope that I would be able to pass through the Sioux again this year on the way up to Quebec for a bear hunt, Ontario for a bear hunt, but it's not looking good. It's not looking good. COVID has extended its reach farther, longer than we ever thought. But we'll see. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reeder Landscaping. Yes, indeed, it's that time of year. It's time to start thinking about moving your living space back outdoors. We've been cooped up long enough. Let's get out and enjoy the property, enjoy the yard. Reeder can do a great patio for you. In fact, they worked on ours a couple of years ago. We doubled the size of it. It's wonderful. It's time to schedule the opening of your sprinkler system. I've got them coming in about 3 weeks to do mine. Spring pruning, of course, as well. Again, another thing, I'm lazy. If I can have the guys at Reeder come over and take care of my lawn and do everything except mow it, I'll mow it. I like the exercise. I will mow it. But the folks from Reeder can take care of everything else. I figure every hour that they work on my yard is another hour that I can spend hunting or fishing. So I think it's the way to go. Spring pruning, the works, freshen up your mulch, edging, all that kind of stuff, weed prevention, fertilization. The folks at Reeder can take care of it for you. Give them a call to schedule things now. The calendar is booking up fast. The website, reederlandscaping.com. That's R-E-D-E-R, reederlandscaping.com. Right now, though, I want to continue the conversation with Al Stewart. Al is a name you've heard here on the show many, many times. I've gone to him frequently as an expert on upland game bird hunting, on turkey hunting. He's a wildlife biologist for the Michigan DNR. As you are hearing this show, he has just recently retired after 50 years with the DNR. Al, you must have started when you were like 5 years old, because I don't think of you as that old at all.
Yeah, well, it's calendar years, so in those first few years, I was, only working a few hours at a whack,
Well, yeah, but still.
But then, I've got, as they say, continuous service hours, 47 years of continuous, work through it. So, I had the good chance to, work in the thumb as a wildlife technician and working on pheasants and grouse management at Minden City, things like that, and as well, and worked as a biologist down in Pontiac and all the rec areas. Worked back here at Rose Lake and helped develop the Maple River Wildlife Area, which is one of the largest interior wetland management areas in the state. So yeah, it's all been fun. And we were talking earlier about interest in turkeys. When I worked for the Wildlife Pathology Lab, one of the activities that I was taken out on was up to Baldwin with Fred Ignatowski to capture wild turkeys with a rocket net, and we were testing them for diseases. And I'm probably 19 maybe then, and they shoot the rocket over these birds, and it's like, oh my God, that's really cool. and so that at that point, and then we captured them, we got them out from under the net, and then we, restrained them and, took blood samples from them and, just looked them over and I was hooked for life, as they say, and that really helped me gain a strong interest in wild turkeys, and I still continue to be excited every time I see one.
That's an interesting point you bring up. A lot of people listening to this show, we love our critters. We love to watch them, to interact with them, to hunt them. But we usually don't get to actually physically put our hands on them, to touch them until we've taken the thing, until it's dead. You've had a chance to deal with these things and handle them and study them while they were alive. That's an interesting aspect of your job that I never really realized until you bring it up right now.
Oh yeah, it's really like a catch and release,
Yeah.
and it is, and that's part of being a wildlife biologist. And I think that's what attracts a lot of wildlife professionals. I mean, that is what you hope you're always going to do, is catch critters and study them and let them go and handle them and, really look them in the eye and try to learn more about them. And some people are lucky to do that. Sometimes you end up, sitting and doing things on a computer, which were people that are doing that. They're really great at managing wildlife too, but in the back of their mind, they still want to go out and touch the animal and feel it and work with it. And I've just had the very good fortune to be able to do that with wild turkeys, deer, grouse, just a lot of things, woodcock banding in the spring, and overseeing that whole program. Just fabulous.
So how did you end up kind of veering off into this upland game bird specialist position instead of, say, whitetails or something like we were talking about earlier?
Well, I always really enjoyed birds too, and in the day, it's hard to believe. Like in the '60s, when I was kind of a kid that way, there were very few or next to no deer in southern Michigan.
Oh,
so, yeah. There were pheasants. Pheasants was the name of the game. And I grew up on a farm that had lots of pheasants. So just attracted to those. There were quail. And then, as luck would have it, one of my friends, again, I'm maybe 11. I must have been 11, then 12. They had a cabin up north. I didn't, I went up north with them, and it was near Lewiston, and they took me up there, and we hunted grouse. We putzed around on things, but we hunted grouse, and I shot my first grouse. I know now, I had no idea where I was until much later. I shot my first grouse in the Pigeon River. It was right there. And I was at the first elk hunt in Michigan because they took us over there to see the elk that were being brought in the 60s for the first elk hunt. Again, just things that, it's just the matter of being in the right place at the right time with the right interest. And so to drive me into game birds was, I've just always enjoyed that. And then there were people like Andy Ammon, who was a great woodcock biologist, and he was an early mentor. He had, the part of the upland game bird position before the grouse and woodcock, and he took me under his wing and, gave me an English setter puppy when I was, just a student in college. And it was just, for me, a match made in heaven.
Al, when I hear you talk about these things, and I don't want to get too far off track here, but what I'm hearing is a lot of lessons for others and maybe for some younger people. It sounds to me like you put in the groundwork, so you were ready, you were prepared, but then you associated with the right people, and it sounds like that has played a pretty significant role in your career.
Oh, yes. It is. I mean, I've just had so many great mentors, and that's through my career I've tried to mentor other people and help them find and see their way. if Hiram Kitchen had never seen some glint of, potential in me, I would never be where I am. I never would have, got onto this path. But, you come to the fork in the road, and, do you become a deer biologist, or you become, a bird biologist? You just sequences are set up that way. Actually, what I wanted to be is a waterfowl biologist as well, and I was pretty qualified to do that. So I had hoped to go that way as well, but I always loved upland game birds, just the way they looked and acted. And like I said, pheasants were one of my first real loves because that's what I got to see.
When I hear you talk about, growing up on a farm and having fields and cricks and critters all around, that was my background, very, very similar. And I think we were lucky to grow up in that era and in those locations, because I think it's less common now for kids than it used to be when we were coming up.
It is, and it's just a matter of, again, what you're exposed to. So, someone like Becky Humphreys, who was the director of the DNR, became the director of the DNR. She grew up in downtown Pontiac, and later moved on to become the director. But she had the opportunity to go to a camp up north at Canada Creek, for some of her summers. So, it's what you get to see and what you get to be part of. And, if I hadn't watched the TV program of the day, and again, that those National Geographic things were something that came on once a month, at best. And now you've got the Outdoor Channel or, the Animal Channel, where you can watch these things, interactions with wildlife all the time, which brings people into this field, into this interest, and gives, wildlife value to them. And when I work with students through Michigan State or other colleges here in Michigan or in the country and help mentor them, I ask, how did you even get interested in this? Many people are watching the outdoor channels, the animal channels, and they're like, wow, this is really cool. I want to do this.
Deja vu.
and they don't have the hands-on dirt under your fingernails experience that you and I may have had.
Al, hang on. I got to take another break, but I want to offer you the coveted third segment if you can stick around for a few more minutes.
Oh, I'm with you.
Coveted third. We haven't offered this in a while, Pat, and Al Stewart says he is happy to do it, and I'm happy to have him along with us. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll wrap up our conversation with Al Stewart of the DNR, and shortly after that, we'll wrap up the show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Manistee on WMLQ. That's 97.7 FM. You can hear us just down the coast in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM. And let's jump over to the other side of the state. WSGW AM and FM, 790 AM, 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios of WSGW right now. But for the 3 hours I'm here, and in this particular studio, it's known as the Outdoor Magazine Studio. When I'm done, I will hand it back over to Pat Johnston, who is here with me doing a wonderful job, as always. Pat, I do appreciate it. Also appreciate Al Stewart taking time out from his last day on the job as a biologist for the DNR. He's been working for the DNR for 50 years. These days, he's an upland game bird specialist, an upland game bird hunting expert, a turkey hunting expert as well. You've heard him here on the show many times. Al, this is a cliche question, and I'm kind of apologetic to even ask you, but when you look back, what were the biggest accomplishments? What are the things that surprised you the most? What gives you the most sense of gratitude?
Oh, certainly restorations, of turkeys to be part of that. The other thing is I worked with the restoration of ospreys into southern Michigan that most people don't even, aren't aware that I was part of that, wrote the original plan. I worked on pheasants on the early end, and now with the Michigan Pheasant Restoration Initiative, we've just accomplished an awful lot. And I think an overall highlight is working and promoting young forests for grouse and woodcock, and the highlight of that was having had the opportunity to be invited to speak at High Grove at the invitation of Prince Charles. And that
that's
was
crazy.
That's a pretty cool deal, feather in your cap, so to say. And High Grove, which I didn't know what it was when people were organizing it, is the personal residence of Prince Charles. So had the ability to go there and talk about woodcock. They invited me. Had the ability to go to Italy. They invited me and covered all expenses, and spoke about woodcock and woodcock management. And so those are some pretty big highlights. And then being recognized by my peers for a variety of things, and having been or am the only person in the world who have captured all the species and subspecies of wild turkeys, sort of a Guinness World Record type of deal. You hear people shooting world slams, and I'm the only person who has shot a world slam and captured and released for research or restoration a grand slam. So that's a quick summary. I've been, again, real fortunate, and I hate to talk about myself in that respect, but you asked the question, and it's been fun, and again, always been at the right place at the right time.
From southern Michigan farm kid to being invited to by European royalty. Somebody should make a movie about your life, Al.
Oh yeah. Who should we have play the key role? A Brad Pitt, of course.
There you go. I was going to say, pick some young, good-looking guy and have him play the lead role. Absolutely. So what do you? Again, another cliche question. So what are you going to do now?
Well, my wife has a big honey-do list, and I got to clean the garage.
Oh man, that's not exactly what I was hoping to hear right off the bat.
No, I've got a lot of things going on, and I'm going to stay actively involved with natural resources, and I've been the charter member of the Wildlife Society here in Michigan and a past president, and so I'm going to continue to stay in that wildlife field and natural resource field, and I'm also involved with the Glasson Foundation, which does a lot in the natural resources field, and I'm going to continue to be more active in that.
Are you going to continue to teach?
And I hope to teach more too, or at least mentor some individuals, and where I can. I've always done that through my career, and I hope to continue to do that in some manner or another.
Now that you've retired, would it be is a seat on the NRC? Would that be an option? Could you accept something like that now that you've retired?
Oh, I could accept something like that. Those are very, very difficult jobs, and I think I'm just going to stay with mentoring students and other people who, have the ability to make change for the future.
I know, and you didn't bring it up. I did. I'm just looking at it from the outside, thinking somebody with your experience, somebody with your background would be a great commissioner. Al, listen, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the conversations we've had over so many years. Congrats on a wonderful career. And listen, just because you're retired doesn't mean I'm not going to call you up and have you on the show once in a while, if you don't mind.
Oh, not a problem. Hey, we can talk turkey hunting, grouse hunting, woodcock hunting, and I'm even willing to talk fishing if you need it.
We'll talk about which shot not to take with a bow next time we talk.
Oh, there you go. Yes, we know that, and which we know that to apply for.
We know, exactly. You've been a great help, Al. I appreciate it. Al Stewart from the DNR, retiring after 50 years. working with the department. How cool is that? And to be able to say you had a job you enjoyed, there aren't many of us who have been blessed with that ability. And I'm one of them, and I appreciate it. We'll take a break. When we come back, wrap it up with Wild Game Chef Dave Minar right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. You know, this has been a great hour. Been an enjoyable hour for me to sit here at this microphone. They all are, to be honest. To be able to sit here and talk about the outdoors, the people involved in the outdoors. You go from Al Stewart, who's just an absolutely great guy, to another great guy, Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dave Minar. We like to wrap up each week's show with Dave. And because I don't want to disappoint you this week, here he is. Once again, David, welcome back. How are you?
Whoopee! I'm really good.
Hey.
Getting ready to go steelhead fishing.
You are? Where are you going?
I'm on the East Branch of the Augury.
Are you there right now?
Nope. All packed up. I was going to do the show, grab a little lunch, and head out.
Excellent. Good luck to you. And I will look forward to seeing a picture of you with a big, beautiful steelhead.
I would like, that one, the one I got on the wall right below where we used to film all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That came out of the East Branch. That was quite a tussle for that fish.
Really?
I'll tell you what. It was 14-pounder in a small stream. Had a lot of them on that night. We were fishing at night, but I'll tell you what, it was a real tussle. Fun. And it tasted good, too.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Steelhead are a wonderful fish. They don't necessarily die after they spawn, so they've got that going for them. They fight like crazy, and they're pretty darn good on the table, too, aren't they?
Oh, boy, I love them. Anyways, what we've got today, 2 springtime favorites. We got Michigan maple syrup. You have to use Michigan maple syrup. You can't use the Aunt Jemima or anything because it's not real. And steelhead. So you need about 8 to 10 ounces of boneless, skinless fillet per person. And you want to skin them deep and get that lateral line out. Any of that red meat that might be underneath the skin, you want to take that away. So you need about 8 to 10 ounces per person. And you're going to marinate this. This is it's really an enjoyable dish, I'll tell you what. And you need about 5 or 6 tablespoons of soy sauce. And if you're watching your sodium intake, you could use the low sodium. It has a little less flavor, but not that much. You need anywhere from 6 to 8 tablespoons, which would be close to an eighth of a cup of Michigan maple syrup. You know those great big oranges that are really, really sweet and juicy? You need one of them. You need anywhere from 3 to 5 cloves of garlic, how much you like or as little. You want to chop it really fine, or you could actually grind it, along with 3 or 4 tablespoons of, same with onion. Dice it really, really fine or grind it. You need about 3 or 4 tablespoons of olive oil. That's it for this marinade. What you want to do is mix all of that together. And you're going to have some cornstarch to thicken this up later, and we're going to use it as a sauce. So after you get this all mixed up, kind of taste it a little bit and see if it's to your liking. If it is, by all means, put a little bit in the bottom of a dish, maybe like a glass casserole or something. You don't want to use aluminum because of the citrus, and it might have a reaction, to that. So put the fish in it, and then put some more of this marinade on top, and you could cover it with a plastic wrap, or if you got a lid of some kind, you don't want it to dry out. And anywhere from 6 to 8 hours, or even overnight, would be just fine. Now, that citrus is going to start to chemically cook this fish along with the olive oil. So it's going to be a faster dish. So in a reel, you want to kind of, wipe off some of this marinade. So in a real nice, medium hot pan, you want to start it with skin side up. Because of the maple syrup in it, it could brown real quick. So you really want to kind of keep an eye on this and maybe lift up the corners and do this in a smaller amount for each pan. And if you like you could, if you don't have a pan to do this with, put it on a baking sheet, 400 to 425 degrees. Start it with the skin side up, turn it once during the cooking process, and then so the rib side would be up, and it should get nice and brown and real eye appeal. So it's only going to take about 8 to 10 minutes. So after 4 or 5 minutes, you're going to turn the fish over, and so then the rib side would be up. Hopefully it's nice and golden brown and real eye appeal. And while this is going on in that 350-degree oven in that pan that you're browning with, heat the marinade up on the oven or on the burner there, nice and slow, because there's a lot of sugar in that maple syrup and it might burn. So what you want to do, because you tasted this before, I said, so you want to make sure you can thicken it up little by little with that cornstarch. You don't want it too thick or too thin, so that when you put it on plate, you're going to set the fish on top of it. And the eye appeal is just killer. And it's going to be a great, great flavor. You could use this with salmon. And again, walleye too. You want to make sure, say a walleye goes so thin at the end, down by the tail, you want to use about the same size pieces of fish, the same thickness, so it cooks about the same time. If you got enough, you could do it in batches like that. And actually, 2 different times in the oven would be recommended for it. So,
David, listen, always a pleasure.
Salmon, steelhead, walleye, anything like that.
Always a pleasure, and I will wish you luck on the river. I think there's a big steelhead or 2 in your near future. Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show. Again, a blessed Easter to you and your family. Remember, Easter is about a lot more than chocolate bunnies and the Easter bunny and all that stuff. It's about salvation. It's about the cross. It's about redemption. If you would keep that in mind this Easter weekend, I think maybe your day will go a lot better. I'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.